The tomato plant came out of the ground looking like it had given up. Roots brown and soft, lower leaves gone yellow, the whole thing leaning in a way that said the soil had been too wet for too long. Most gardeners would reach for a fertilizer, maybe a fungicide spray, maybe just a prayer. This gardener reached for a brown bottle from the bathroom cabinet, not a product from the garden center, something that costs less than $1. And 2 weeks later, white new roots were pushing out from that same plant. That bottle was hydrogen peroxide, the ordinary drugstore kind, the one that foams when it touches a cut. And the reason it helped has almost nothing to do with what most people think hydrogen peroxide does. The reason goes underground, into the biology happening just below the soil line. Once you understand it, you will never look at a sick plant the same way again. When a plant begins to decline, most gardeners start at the leaves. Yellow leaves suggest nitrogen, pale leaves suggest iron, spotted leaves suggest fungal disease. The spray aisle at the garden center is built around this assumption that the answer to what you see above the soil is also found above the soil. So gardeners buy foliar sprays, liquid fertilizers, fungicide treatments. Some of it helps, a lot of it does nothing, because the real problem was never in the leaf at all. The leaves are late messengers. By the time a leaf turns yellow or begins to curl, the decision was made days earlier, not in the leaf, but in the root. The root is the engine, the harvester, the decision maker the whole plant depends on. And roots have their own set of needs that have nothing to do with what sits on a fertilizer label. Roots need oxygen. Not much, but steadily. They breathe through tiny spaces between soil particles, and when those spaces fill with water, from rain that does not drain, from overwatering that never fully dries, the oxygen disappears. The root zone becomes airless, and that is when the trouble starts. In an airless, waterlogged root zone, the organisms that cause root rot find their ideal conditions. These are anaerobic organisms, bacteria and water molds that thrive where roots are struggling to breathe. They colonize the outer root surface, then move inward. The roots turn brown, then soft, then mushy. They stop absorbing water, they stop absorbing nutrients, and the plant above, in a deep irony, begins to wilt, not because the soil is dry, but because the roots can no longer function. More water makes it worse. More fertilizer poured on top has nowhere to go. This is the moment most gardeners misread. The soil is wet. The leaves are yellow. They reduce watering, add fertilizer, spray the foliage, and wonder why the plant keeps declining. The real problem is that the root zone has become an airless environment, and it needs something the garden center cannot easily sell. Here is where hydrogen peroxide becomes relevant. And here is the first thing most people do not know about it. Plants already make hydrogen peroxide, not as a waste product, but as part of their own internal chemistry. During photosynthesis and photorespiration, plant cells produce hydrogen peroxide as a signaling molecule. It helps regulate stress responses, guides root development, and coordinates how the plant reacts when something goes wrong. Researchers focused on plant biology have documented this for years. Hydrogen peroxide at low, controlled concentrations is part of the plant's own biological language. Rainwater also carries trace amounts naturally. Old gardeners who collected rain in barrels and preferred it to tap water may have been giving their plants something chlorinated municipal water never provides. They probably did not know why the plants responded better. The chemistry was happening anyway. When diluted hydrogen peroxide reaches organic material in the soil, it breaks apart. The extra oxygen atom releases rapidly, flooding the immediate root zone with dissolved oxygen. That oxygen does two things at once. It creates an environment that anaerobic pathogens cannot survive, and it temporarily restores the condition that roots need in order to breathe and resume absorbing water and nutrients. But here is the part that matters most. Hydrogen peroxide is not feeding the plant. It is not adding nitrogen, calcium, or any nutrient. It is correcting the environment so the plant can feed itself using what was already in the soil. The plant does not recover because of the hydrogen peroxide. It recovers because the hydrogen peroxide removed what was blocking recovery. That is a completely different mechanism from a fertilizer or a spray, and it is why this works in a specific situation but does absolutely nothing in others. This is also why garden centers cannot easily bottle it for the purpose you actually need. The 3% solution in a drugstore is stabilized inside a dark bottle, kept cool and away from light. The moment you dilute it and prepare it as a soil drench, it begins to decompose, reacting with organic matter, warmth, and light. A ready-to-use hydrogen peroxide drench bottled at the correct dilution would be mostly water by the time it sat in a warehouse, rode a truck, and made it to someone's garden. The method works because you make it at the moment you need it. That is not a secret, that is just chemistry. Now for the part where many gardeners ruin it. Use only the standard 3% hydrogen peroxide from the drugstore, the brown bottle in the first aid section, not hair developer, not industrial grade. Those concentrations are too strong, and at the root zone they do not just kill anaerobic pathogens, they burn living root tissue directly. For a soil drench, mix 1 part of that 3% solution with 3 to 4 parts of cool water. Use filtered water if you have it, or let tap water sit open for an hour first. Chlorine in municipal tap water reacts with hydrogen peroxide and reduces its effectiveness before it ever reaches the root zone. Mix in a clean watering can or glass jug and use it immediately. Do not store the diluted mixture. Set it aside and it loses strength. Let it sit in the light and it loses strength faster. Before applying, water the plant lightly with plain water first. Then pour the diluted solution slowly around the base, not over the foliage, not into the crown, but at the soil line directed toward the root zone. Pour slowly enough that the soil can absorb it without runoff. Then leave it. Do not apply again for at least 5 to 7 days. One application is usually enough to shift the conditions. Repeating too soon is where the method turns against you. Here is the other half of the story that most gardening videos leave out entirely. Hydrogen peroxide is not selective. When it floods the root zone and eliminates anaerobic pathogens, it also affects the organisms you want to keep, beneficial bacteria, and the mycorrhizal fungi that extend the plant's reach through the soil. These organisms make nutrients available in forms plants can actually absorb. Overuse of hydrogen peroxide can gradually sterilize that soil life. The plant may have fertilizer present, but without microbial activity to convert it, the plant remains unable to use it. The first application opened a window. Repeated applications quietly lock the garden from the inside. Use it once, at the right moment, in the right dilution. The right moment is when a plant is showing the first signs of root zone trouble, early yellowing, soft rot beginning at the soil line, a transplant that never recovered, a container plant overwatered through a wet season. The earlier the intervention, the more living root tissue is available to respond. Hydrogen peroxide cannot rebuild dead cells. It can remove the obstacle so that living tissue can begin working again. If no living tissue remains, the bottle stays in the bathroom. For foliar use on early powdery mildew on tomatoes, cucumbers, roses, or squash, dilute to roughly 1 tablespoon of 3% solution per gallon of plain water. Apply with a spray bottle in early morning or evening. never in midday heat. Do not spray orchids, ferns, African violets, or young seedlings, which have more sensitive leaf tissue and will show spotting or burning even at low concentrations. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and zucchini tend to respond well to the soil drench when caught early, sometimes showing new white root growth within 1 to 2 weeks if living roots remained. Root crops like carrots and beets benefit most from soil oxygenation early in growth. Late application can interfere with root development rather than support it. Many videos about hydrogen peroxide in the garden show spectacular before and after results with language that implies transformation is guaranteed. The honest version is more specific. Some plants with recoverable root systems and fixable soil conditions may show meaningful improvement within 2 weeks. Others will not respond visibly for longer. A plant too far gone will not recover at all. This is not a fertilizer replacement, not a disease cure, not a substitute for better drainage or more careful watering. It is a targeted tool with a precise purpose, and it works best used once, well-timed, correctly diluted. The roots decide what the plant does next. The leaves are just the report, delivered late. If the root zone has oxygen, if the rot is cleared, if living roots have room to function, the plant has a chance. That chance does not come in an expensive spray bottle with a bright label. 2 weeks after that first pour of cloudy water at the soil line, the tomato plant had white roots pushing into fresh soil. The brown bottle went back to the bathroom shelf where it had been the whole time. The plant did not care what the bottle cost or what aisle it came from. It only cared what the root zone felt like. Get that right, and the rest tends to follow. There is another common kitchen item that does something equally unexpected in the soil, not to the roots themselves, but to the microbial life surrounding them. When it works, the result looks almost too simple to believe.